An unknown email hit Isabel Groom's phone mid-ceremony. "Your life depends on this." She opened it, read 3 lines, and stopped the entire wedding cold. Then she made one request that exposed everything. "Quick question before we jump in. If you got a warning message at the altar, would you read it or ignore it?" Keep that in mind. The Swan House at the Atlanta History Center was silent in the way only powerful rooms get silent. 400 guests sat perfectly still beneath white columns and manicured gardens, waiting for a billionaire wedding to become official. Isabel Groom'S stood at the altar, veil resting against her back, hand steady around a bouquet that cost more than most cars. Across from her, Jonathan O'Neill smiled. Tailored tuxedo, perfect posture, every inch the man Atlanta society trusted. The officiant nodded. "Isabel, your vows." Isabel took a breath, and then her phone vibrated. Once. Twice. She had told everyone, not to contact her today unless it was an emergency. Isabel glanced down, expecting family panic, some distant crisis. Instead, one message stared back at her from an unknown number. "Check your email now. Your life depends on it." Her fingers tightened. She opened it, read 3 lines, and felt the room tilt. Isabel looked up at Jonathan. Not the groom, not the smile, but the man underneath. Then she stepped back from the altar. Her voice was calm, clear, loud enough for every guest to hear. "Jonathan, show me what's in your left inner pocket." The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was the sound of a wedding turning into something else entirely. To everyone watching, Isabel Groom's looked calm. But calm was something she had trained, not something she assumed. Isabel didn't grow up in rooms like the Swan House. She grew up watching her mother stretch dignity across scarcity. She became a corporate attorney by learning one rule early: patterns matter more than promises. Jonathan O'Neill had always known how to say the right things. He moved easily through Atlanta's upper circles. He knew which fork to use, which donor to flatter, which story to tell. But in the months leading up to the wedding, small things didn't line up. Jonathan pushed hard against a prenup, calling it unromantic. He insisted their finances be fully merged. No secrets in marriage. He took phone calls in other rooms, and expenses appeared on shared cards that Isabel didn't recognize. 2 weeks earlier, Isabel used Jonathan's laptop to print a seating chart. An email thread opened by accident. A name she didn't know. Ruth Smith. The language wasn't affectionate, it was procedural. "Once the ceremony is complete. After assets transfer, proceed as discussed." Jonathan explained it away smoothly. A consultant. Boring paperwork. Nothing to worry about. Isabel wanted to believe him. Because weddings aren't just about love. They're about momentum, deposits paid, guests flown in, pride engaged, and doubt starts to feel like sabotage. Standing at the altar now, Isabel's eyes moved across her screen. The email wasn't long. It was precise. No emotion. No drama, just facts. Ruth Smith wrote that she had helped Jonathan prepare documents meant to transfer Isabel's inheritance into joint control. That Jonathan planned to drug Isabel during the reception, enough to make her compliant, not unconscious. That the vial was already on him, left inner pocket. Attached were screenshots, bank records, draft transfer forms, and one final line. "I'm sending this because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't stop it." Isabel didn't gasp, didn't cry. She did what lawyers do when evidence arrives. She assessed behavior. Jonathan noticed the pause. "What's wrong?" he whispered, smile tightening. Isabel didn't answer. She stepped back from the altar instead. Her voice didn't shake. "Jonathan, show me what's in your left inner pocket." Confusion rippled through the guests. Jonathan laughed softly, too quickly. "Isabel, this isn't funny." She didn't accuse him. She didn't explain. She just stood there, waiting. Jonathan reached for her hand, then for her phone. Isabel turned slightly away. That was when people began to understand. Innocent men don't reach for phones. They don't control narratives. They show pockets. Jonathan didn't. He took a step backward instead. And that single step told Isabel everything she needed to know. Jonathan O'Neill didn't show his pocket. Instead, he smiled again. Too wide, too rehearsed. "Isabel," he said softly, leaning closer, "you're embarrassing us. Put the phone away." "Us. Not me. Not you. Us." The word landed wrong. Isabel didn't raise her voice. She didn't repeat herself. She just stayed still. That silence stretched. 5 seconds, then 10. Long enough for the front row to start shifting. Long enough for people to glance at each other instead of the altar. Jonathan's smile cracked. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're letting some random email ruin our wedding." He reached again, for her phone. This time, Isabel stepped back fully. "Don't," she said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was final. That was the moment the room changed. Because innocent people don't panic when asked a simple question. And guilty people don't answer with outrage. They answer with control. Jonathan's eyes flicked left, then right. Then he did something that no one expected at a billionaire wedding. He turned and ran. Gasps erupted as Jonathan moved down the aisle, fast and desperate, tuxedo tail swinging like he'd forgotten where he was. He made it 15 feet. No more. A tall guest stepped into his path instinctively. Another followed. Someone said, "Hey, stop!" Jonathan froze. He spun around, chest heaving, eyes wild now. "This is insane," he shouted. "You can't detain me. This is assault." Isabel walked forward calmly, her dress brushing the marble floor. "No one's detaining you," she said. "I just asked you a question." The officiant stood frozen. The guests were standing now, phones out, whispers spreading. Isabel stopped a few feet away from Jonathan. "Show your pocket," she said again. "If there's nothing there, we continue." Jonathan's jaw clenched. For a moment, just a moment, it looked like he might actually comply. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled something out himself. A small glass vial, clear liquid inside. It caught the light from the chandeliers as he held it up between his fingers. The room went dead silent. Jonathan lifted his chin, trying to reclaim control. "You want to know what this is?" he said bitterly. "Insurance. Insurance. Against being questioned. Against being told no." Isabel didn't argue. She held out her hand. "Give it to me." Jonathan hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to keep it, to throw it, to smash it. But the room was watching. Slowly, he placed the vial into Isabel's open palm. She looked at it briefly. Then she turned, not to Jonathan, but to the guests. "This," Isabel said calmly, "is why I stepped back from the altar. No accusation yet. No explanation yet. Just proof." And in that moment, Jonathan O'Neill understood something too late. The wedding was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. The vial sat in Isabel Groom's palm like a punctuation mark. Not dramatic, not loud, just undeniable. She didn't rush to explain it. She let the room absorb what it meant to see something that had no business being at a wedding. Only then did she speak. "My name is Isabel Groom'S," she said, turning slightly so her voice carried across the Swan House gardens. "I'm a corporate attorney. My job is to read intent, not stories." She lifted her phone. "The email I received minutes ago came from a woman named Ruth Smith." A murmur rippled through the guests. The name meant nothing to them yet. "She wasn't a stranger," Isabel continued. "She was part of the plan." Jonathan flinched. Isabel's eyes flicked to him once, controlled, almost clinical. then back to the room. Ruth Smith helped draft documents meant to transfer my inheritance into joint accounts immediately after this ceremony. Documents disguised as routine financial planning. Documents I would have been asked to sign while impaired. A sharp intake of breath from somewhere in the crowd. She provided screenshots of conversations, bank records, draft transfers, and photographs of the drug you just saw. Isabel paused, then added the line that landed hardest. She also explained why. She turned fully toward Jonathan. Now, you lost your job 6 months ago, Isabel said calmly. Not downsizing, termination, financial irregularities. Jonathan opened his mouth. Isabel didn't raise her voice, but she raised her hand. You're in debt, she continued. Millions, to people who don't wait politely for repayment. Silence thickened. And you knew, Isabel said, that my trust becomes accessible upon marriage. Jonathan swallowed. So you didn't need love, Isabel said. You needed timing. She took a breath, not to steady herself, but to slow the room. The drug wasn't meant to knock me unconscious, she said. It was meant to confuse me. Lower resistance. Make signatures easier. Several guests looked physically ill now. And Ruth Smith, Isabel continued, was supposed to receive a percentage once the money moved. Jonathan stared at the floor. She sent me everything, Isabel said, because this morning she decided she wouldn't live with what she helped plan. Isabel let that sit. Then she said quietly, that email arrived before I said, I do. The implication didn't need explanation. Had it arrived later, the law would have been slower, messier, crueler. Jonathan's shoulders slumped, not because he was sorry, because the math no longer worked. Isabel closed her phone and looked around the room. I didn't want to accuse without proof, she said, and I didn't want proof without witnesses. She turned back to Jonathan. So now you have a choice. The room leaned in as one. The Swan House no longer felt like a wedding venue. It felt like a courtroom. Isabel Groom'S looked at Jonathan O'Neill the way professionals look at risk, without anger, without mercy, without illusion. You have 2 options, she said calmly. Jonathan lifted his head slightly, eyes red, jaw tight. Option 1, Isabel continued. I call the police right now. A ripple moved through the crowd. Phones lowered. No one whispered anymore. Possession of that drug without prescription is a felony, Isabel said. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a felony. Attempted coercion is a felony. She let the list end there. Jonathan's breathing turned shallow. Option 2, Isabel said. We proceed with the reception. Confusion flashed across his face. The venue is paid for, she continued. The guests are here. The microphones work. She turned her body slightly, gesturing toward the reception stage already set with flowers and glassware. And you, Isabel said, returning her eyes to Jonathan, will stand in front of everyone who came to celebrate us. My family, your family, colleagues, friends, and you will tell the truth. Jonathan shook his head slowly. You can't make me. Isabel nodded once. You're right, she said. I can't make you. She stepped closer. Not threatening, just undeniable. But if you don't, she said quietly, I pick up my phone. A beat. Police, charges, court records, news cameras. Another beat. Your name online forever. Attached to the words, attempted drugging. The weight of it pressed down visibly. Isabel softened her voice, not with kindness, but with precision. This option, she said, gesturing to the stage, is the only one where you get to speak in your own words. Jonathan's lips parted. You keep some illusion of dignity, Isabel said. You control the sequence, if not the outcome. She leaned in just enough for only him to hear. "This is mercy," she said. "Don't mistake it for weakness." Jonathan looked around, at the guests, at his family, at the phones already recording. For the first time, he understood something that Isabel had known for years. Silence was no longer available to him. He exhaled slowly. "Fine," he muttered. Isabel straightened. "What was that?" she asked, not raising her voice. Jonathan swallowed hard. "I'll do it," he said louder. "I'll give the toast." The room reacted, not with applause, but with electricity. Isabel turned to the guests. "Please enjoy the cocktail hour," she said evenly. "Dinner will be served shortly." Then, looking back at Jonathan, "And after that," she added, "you'll speak." She handed the vial to a trusted friend, without ceremony. And for the first time since the phone vibrated, Isabel relaxed her shoulders. The choice had been made. The reception hall at the Swan House filled slowly. Crystal glasses clinked. Servers moved carefully, as if sound itself needed permission. Guests sat, not talking much. Everyone knew the real event hadn't happened yet. Jonathan O'Neill stood alone near the stage, not with his groomsmen, not with his family. Alone. When the DJ finally spoke, his voice was restrained, professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, the groom would like to say a few words." A hush fell instantly. Jonathan walked to the microphone like a man approaching a sentence he couldn't appeal. He gripped the stand with both hands, cleared his throat once, then again. "I was supposed to give a toast about love," Jonathan began, voice unsteady. "But I can't, because everything about me, about this wedding, has been a lie." A ripple ran through the room. "My name is Jonathan O'Neill," he said, "and I didn't fall in love with Isabel Groom'S. I targeted her." Gasps erupted, sharp, involuntary. "I learned about her inheritance months ago," he continued, "and I decided she was my solution." Jonathan swallowed hard. "I lost my job 6 months ago for financial misconduct. I owe millions to people who don't accept apologies." Several guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone muttered, "Jesus." "So I planned this wedding like a transaction," Jonathan said, staring straight ahead. "I planned to drug Isabel during the reception, just enough to make her confused, compliant." A woman near the back covered her mouth. "I had documents prepared," he continued. "Transfers disguised as financial planning. Once signed, the money would move. By the time she understood what happened, it would have been too late." Jonathan's voice cracked, not from remorse, but exposure. "I had help," he said, "from a woman named Ruth Smith. She helped draft the documents. She was supposed to be paid." He paused. "But this morning, she stopped it." Jonathan looked up for the first time, his eyes finding Isabel. "She sent Isabel everything, and Isabel did what I never expected." He laughed once, dry, hollow. "She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She didn't let me hide." Jonathan's hand shook on the microphone. "I was going to drug my wife," he said, "and steal from her, and I would have justified it to myself as survival." The room felt heavy now, like everyone was breathing the same air. "I don't deserve forgiveness," Jonathan said quietly, "and I don't expect it." He took a long breath. "To Isabel," he said, turning fully toward her, "you saw through me. You stopped me. And you saved yourself." Jonathan stepped back from the microphone. The feedback squealed briefly. Then silence. No applause. No shouting. Just the unmistakable sound of a life collapsing in public. Across the room, Isabel Groom'S remained seated, calm, composed, untouched by spectacle. She didn't look triumphant. She looked finished. The silence didn't last long. Slowly, deliberately, someone stood. It was Isabel Groom'S mother. She didn't clap loudly. She didn't cheer. She brought her hands together once, then again. Measured, steady. Others followed. Not for Jonathan. For Isabel. Isabel rose calmly from her seat. She didn't rush the stage. She walked the length of the room with composure, the kind that comes from certainty, not adrenaline. When she took the microphone, the room quieted instantly. "Thank you," she said, "for staying." She scanned the room, family, friends, colleagues, strangers who had come expecting celebration, and instead witnessed truth. This was meant to be a wedding, Isabel continued. Instead, it became a lesson in how deception works, and how it ends. She paused. "I could have called the police the moment I read that email," she said. "And I still may. The evidence exists. The consequences will follow." Jonathan stood motionless at the edge of the room. "But tonight," Isabel said, "I wanted something else first." She turned slightly toward the crowd. "I wanted witnesses." A murmur moved through the guests. "Because silence is how people like Jonathan operate," she continued. "They rely on privacy, embarrassment, and the belief that no one wants to cause a scene." Her voice remained even. "I chose to cause one." A few quiet nods, a few swallowed breaths. "This isn't about revenge," Isabel said. "It's about accountability, about protecting yourself before the law has to clean up what denial allows." She lifted her glass. "So, this is my toast," she said. "To clarity, to evidence, and to walking away, no matter how expensive or public it feels, when something is built on lies." The room echoed softly. To clarity. Glasses touched. Drinks were raised. The band began to play, slow at first, then lighter. And something unexpected happened. The night didn't collapse. It transformed. People talked, danced, laughed with relief instead of celebration. A wedding reception became something else entirely. A release, a reset. Jonathan O'Neill slipped out quietly. No goodbye. No second chances. In the weeks that followed, consequences unfolded the way they always do when truth meets paper trails. Legal conversations, investigations, endings that didn't need to be narrated to be understood. Isabel Groom'S didn't disappear. She returned to work. She recentered her life, and she funded the things she'd always intended to. Education, legal protection, women who didn't have microphones or witnesses. The night at the Swan House didn't break her. It saved her. And if there's one lesson in what you just watched, it's this. When something feels off, don't wait for permission to question it. Trust patterns. Trust evidence. And never let politeness cost you your future. If you were in Isabel's position, would you have exposed the truth publicly, or walked away quietly? That answer says more than you think.